Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Weathering with You, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Beatriz Mourad.
Hello.
And Alex Bonilla.
Hey.
Yes, we're talking Makoto Shinkai's latest film, Weathering with You, was just released in the United States on Wednesday. It's been out in Japan, I think it was out last summer, as these things go. It premiered as part of a 2-night Fathom event that's kind of how they do anime releases nowadays and in the US, and it will be wide in quotes after that. I don't think it's in a lot of theaters, but it will be in potentially across the country. So Weathering with You in theaters now. And Makoto Shinkai's last film, Your Name, was a big hit around the world. We talked about it on this podcast. A lot of us love it. So we're very excited to see Weathering with You and talk about it now. You can find our years-old Your Name podcast and a bunch of other animation coverage at overlyanimated.com. Search for us on iTunes or Spotify. And our YouTube is youtube.com/overlyanimated. So we're going to start off in no spoiler territory here. If you're thinking about going to see it, maybe it's a trek to a theater, you can get our spoiler-free takes in the first 5 minutes here, but then we're going to get into spoilers right after that. So, vaguely, spoiler-free overview. Beatriz, what were your thoughts on Weathering with You?
Maybe I should go last.
Okay.
Wow.
I wasn't sure who should go first. So, Alex, what's your overall Weathering with You takes?
I thought it was overall an enjoyable experience. I think that I'd be interested to hear from the perspective of someone who hasn't watched Your Name, because I feel like it's impossible. Like, if you've watched Your Name, it's impossible to divorce it from that as as a baseline situation. But like, trying not to. I mean, I'll say that this movie it leans a lot more on humor than the previous movie, which took me a bit by surprise since I wasn't going in expecting that. And I think it mostly works. There's some duds, but like if you're looking for laughs, I mean, Weathering with You is certainly aiming for that. It's definitely as pretty a movie as you'll watch. Lots of 360-degree shots to really show off the abilities of technology these days, and obviously weather. It's a lot.
We'll talk about the weather.
Lots of water. Yeah, lots of rain.
Is this the most wet movie you've ever seen, Alex?
Well, Aquaman is like in the running, that takes place in the ocean.
True.
But this is pretty close for an above the surface movie. but yeah, if you appreciate the arts of animation, like there's a lot to enjoy in this movie. I will say that it's in terms of story, it starts off a bit slow. I think it picks up by the second half, and there are definitely flaws with this movie. Like, I'm not going to gush about it as much as I would if I did when I first watched Your Name, but there's good stuff here, and I would definitely recommend it as a movie to be taken along with, since it does have its twists and turns, and up to you to which twists you enjoy and which you don't. But I enjoyed this movie overall.
Okay, I should have went to Alex first. Okay, there you go. That's the we'll see what Beatrice has to say, but I'll go second because I have a middle. I'll probably be the middle person here. I think this is a good movie, Weathering with You. I think if you're expecting Your Name and a movie that's like, I love Your Name. I think it's so incredible. This movie is like much worse. I think. I still think it's good. It's pleasant. I think that's the main good thing I can say about it. It's like pretty pleasant. Best thing is the animation. It's super gorgeous. If you're going to see this movie, see it in a theater. I'm not going to say I'm going to like recommend it overall necessarily, but like it's worth it to see it in the theater because it's so beautiful. I personally like this. I was seeing this movie. So first half of this movie, I think, can be a little rough. I think it starts off in some bad places. I think there's a lot of misogyny going on here. Puts you in a bad frame of mind. It eventually maybe gets you out of it. I don't know. If people don't care about the sexism, then it's going to be a lot easier to watch this. But this was a good time for me to watch this movie because this took place in Tokyo, and it was like I was just in Japan a few weeks ago, and this was so amazing to see. Like, this may be the most gorgeous presentation of Tokyo in animation history. I don't know, like it's incredible seeing all the different parts of the city. That was probably my favorite part of it, which is like not related to the story characters or anything. So maybe that tells you something.
That's a big part of it, is the look of this. I think that's a main selling point. Really,
I think so. Yeah. It's like absolutely gorgeous presentation of Tokyo, of like weather and skies and stuff. The characters are hollow. They're fine. The story is hollow. It's fine. Super sexist. There you go. That's the and let's see if Beatriz is as negative as she was hinting at earlier. What did you think, Beatriz?
So I think, sure, the actual visuals of this movie do play a big role. I'm one of these people that can't turn off their minds and just ogle at pretty things. I actually want to engage with what I'm seeing. So that's not enough for me. So yeah, it's a very pretty movie. If you're able to just, kind of gaze off into it and forget about the things actually happening in it, then I highly recommend it because it's very pretty. But yeah, it's gross.
Yeah.
I think what the distinction between whether or not you're going to enjoy this movie or not is whether or not you like the protagonist. I don't care about him, so I'm not even gonna. I don't even remember his name. If you care about his journey, if you care about his story, if you sympathize with him, sure. Go. You're gonna have fun in this movie. It's very lighthearted. If you actually want to analyze what he does and think about what he does, then you're not. You're just gonna be like, rolling your eyes more than anything else, and. I don't know. It felt like, again, I don't want to compare it to Your Name, but I think one of the reasons Your Name was successful, maybe was allowed to not fall into these kind of misogynistic traps, was because it had two main characters.
Yes.
One was a girl and one is a boy. Whereas with this one, like you are in the mind of one boy. You are following one boy through his story. So I guess, because, the writer-director, he wasn't forced to be in the mind of a woman. He was like, well, I'm just gonna treat him poorly in this movie because it's fine. I'm just gonna give you all this like superficial nonsense and it's gonna be great and enjoyable, completely forgetting that women also watch this movie. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had the same exact thought while watching the movie. Is like we sorely need Hina's perspective here. Like,
yeah,
it would have saved so much. But is the misogyny of it your main thing you're negative on, or is it just also you just didn't connect with what was happening?
I think it was also just the fact that I think it's because I just didn't connect with him. I didn't connect with him, and I think that was the problem. Like even like I connected, and this is crazy to say, but I connected more with Hina's younger brother than I connected with him.
I agree.
And you know what I mean? I connected more with him.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
And it's just, I also feel like the movie was just very self-indulgent and very creepy in terms of age and consent and this weird message. Mm-hmm. And then and it's like, there are this, like by the end, once you realize exactly, it's even more creepy, and I felt like this was just a very self-indulgent thing written from, I don't know, it just felt like I don't know, like a very adult man thinking about that's what throws me off. I don't know, there's just this weird sense of just like, it just felt like very fan servicey, which is not what, especially coming off of like my first introduction to the writer director was more of like that. Your Name was my introduction to him. So in a way, I felt like safe coming into this movie, being like, all right, I'm going to have a good time. I don't have to worry about this because he's proven that he isn't like any, like some, when it comes to like anime, not necessarily animated films, but certain anime can be very fan servicey, very self-indulgent from the perspective of men and very male gazy. So I wasn't expecting that from him. And the fact that that's exactly what I got was just very disappointing. So I think it was just a lot of things. It was I didn't know what the movie was about, so I guess it was just unfair expectation being thrown off by the sexism and then just completely not caring about the protagonist. I think it was just all of that coming together to just not work for me.
Yeah, I think.
But yeah, it was very pretty. Very pretty. Very pretty movie visually.
I think all that's fair. We're going to dive more into what you were talking about. I agree with almost all of it. But in spoilers, I think like, if you watch a lot of like sexist anime, nothing here is going to be surprise you. So if you are okay with that, which I don't think is the greatest personality trait, but if you're okay with that, then like you'll be fine. Like, go watch this movie because that's the main negative thing about it. But like if you're not haven't seen a lot of anime and stuff, and you've only seen Your Name, this might be shocking. Like, I don't think it, like, this, the thing is, the Fathom event like had a message from Shinkai in the beginning saying, "Oh, I did Your Name, and now this is my follow up." Like they primed us for like the comparing it to Your Name. That was not a good idea. So I think the normal screenings won't have that, but like it wasn't our fault completely. Like, we're comparing it to Your Name. Like he came on in the beginning and end, right? Just talking.
And look. The whole reason that this movie is not the whole reason, but a big reason that this movie is getting the attention it's getting, like it was being talked about for like Oscar shortlist, was because of Your Name. It was such a big hit, and that kind of put his name out there into the mainstream. It's like, oh, okay, a follow up to like this a great movie. So like, let's see if they can replicate it, and it's hard to replicate what some people would deem a masterpiece, and here we're seeing kind of the bits. You see bits and pieces of it, but it never totally comes together to what you enjoyed from the first movie.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even say it was trying to replicate it, and I wouldn't even say it's fair to.
I would definitely say
no, but like, for instance, I wouldn't say like I was expecting it to replicate it. Like, the things that I expected of this movie aren't things that I feel like are asking to replicate Your Name. I'm like, like, for instance, like saying, oh, like, I don't want sexism in the movie shouldn't be, oh, that equals to me being like, oh, this isn't Your Name. It's like, oh, I just wanted a movie that treated women decently, which is, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't go as far as to say like, oh, like, because it's not Your Name, I'm angry about it. It's, oh, this is sexist and that's why I'm angry. Like, for me, the disconnect is I'm not upset with like my disgust with the movie isn't because it's not Your Name. It's because of other factors that don't really have anything to do with.
Yeah, well, we'll get into him making Your Name and what he avoided there that didn't avoid stuff. Yeah, okay. So, but I will say, like, I do think people were primed to think this movie would be good, but it's getting widespread acclaim. I saw it having like 98% on Rotten Tomatoes at some point. It's not just like anime fans that are liking this, like critics or at least like the critics that'll watch an anime movie, which are kind of a certain type of critic, are like very happy. And I a little, to a certain extent, don't really get it, because I do think the movie's like I said, not really there. But there's definitely a lot of people that are really, really liking this movie. So I don't know, that might be you if you're deciding whether to see it, but we'll expand on criticisms and things we like heading into spoilers, I guess. So yeah, if you have not seen Weathering with You yet, go see it. Come back. Full spoilers now for the movie, starting right now. Yeah, I mean, I think let's at least for 5 minutes try to avoid deep diving into the misogyny more, because I think that'll come up also with this question, which is like, what's the favorite and least favorite part of the movie? We to a certain extent covered this, but Alex, there's you cited a few things you really liked in the movie. What do you think is like the standout element, visuals aside, or is there a specific visual or scene or something, and maybe the least favorite scene or part or aspect?
Favorite like part in terms of visuals. I mean, the 360 degree shots that he employs a lot in this movie. I enjoyed all of them. I did see some talk on the internets that there are people who thought it wasn't that great. So like I don't know if that's a consensus thing, but like I enjoyed the experimentation with the animation, especially like near the end of the movie, and we get into like the clouds and the sky and stuff. So like that all feels good, on top of obviously all the detail they put into the cityscape. I actually enjoy Hina. I can definitely agree with the fact that they don't give her the depth that she needs, but I think that her participation in this is one of the highlights. Like, I think that she does have a bit of a magnetic personality to her, and that's kind of the point of her character. Like they are literally calling her a sunshine girl, so that's kind of the point. But like I enjoy when she gets to do things, which isn't that often, and when she has interactions with her brother, that's nice. So I enjoy her. Now, least favorite parts, I would definitely agree that the main male character is not that engaging. The gun thing is very weird and out of place in this. Like the at the beginning, like you got him like kind of being an afraid homeless person, and like he's pulling out a gun and somehow like that has to loop into the climax, even though it really has nothing to do with Hina. And like that's the part that I care more about, if you want me to care about something in this movie. So like them like worrying about him having a gun, and like that part just felt totally like out of step with the rest of this movie. So in general, I think that his side of the story is much weaker than her side of the story. I wish there was more focus on Hina, because I think that when it focuses on her, it's at its strongest.
Okay. His name is Hodaka. And
Hodaka, okay.
Yeah, I will, I guess try to defend him later when we go over his character. The gun, why is that in the movie? That was really incongruous and not enjoyable, I would say, whenever he holds up a gun.
Yeah,
It's there for artificial tension. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, and it's weird because I think, the big kind of question and decision, like the biggest, like the pivotal choice that Hodaka makes in the movie is, I would rather save you than save Tokyo, right? I would rather save Hina than save Tokyo.
Right.
That's his choice. So I feel like instead of actually wanting to engage with that question and have him mull over that question and the angst that comes from that question, and because you kind of see it at the end when he keeps apologizing to the old lady, whatever, and she goes, "Oh, it's not your fault," even though it kind of is. He made this choice, and now Tokyo's underwater. And instead of kind of really engaging with that question head on, and like just kind of the philosophical question of like, would you rather save one person or 1,000 or like multiple, instead of engaging with that, they decided to add this weird gun thing so that it would kind of eat up time, and then we wouldn't have to deal with that. And if anything, it was like the way that he's able to save her is relatively simple. The only thing that complicates it is the gun and the police chase because he has the gun. So in a way, it feels artificial, and it does feel out of place. And I feel like it's because of that. And I don't want to use the interview that they had afterward as as a kind of a basis as to like to add to things, because sometimes I feel like people should just take the movie for what it is instead of also getting information from the director. You know what I mean? But he did say in the interview how like the entire like that moment when he says I would rather have you than a clear sky, like that moment was because apparently society makes young people be very stifled because of social media. It was his answer to that. So he was like,
that's a classic director's answer.
Yeah. So he was like, so I wanted him to just shout it out with his desires and not be afraid. And I'm like, cool, awesome. Why couldn't that have been more the theme of the story instead of this one moment? And you could have just taken the gun out. It was more like
I didn't really get that from them. So there's an interview at the end of the Fathom event. I didn't stay for it, and so Beatriz can contribute. And
I also stayed for it, and related to this as well. Like there's one thing that I wrote down here where he says something along the lines, or along with that decision. Like, I know some people would find this unforgivable, but it's okay if the film is entertaining, or something along that lines. And I think that kind of
just entertaining. Is that what he means?
Well, like the point is that. Sure, the decision to ruin the world for the girl in real life, you'd be like, "What are you doing? You don't care about the whole world." But it doesn't matter as long as the experience of watching the film is fun and entertaining, and like it comes to an interesting conclusion. And I think that kind of speaks to what Beatriz is saying with like, if you're in the mood for breaking down the movie and like its messaging, I think that you are going to be disappointed because it is a very superficial movie in terms of that, because it sort of skirts around the idea of climate change and like humans' effect on climate, and that there's all this talk about the young people when we were young it was okay, and now the young people of today are dealing with problems, and you can sort of get the message here of like, well, it's not really going to get fixed, so just like work it out just look out for yourself situation. And it's like, that's not exactly a fulfilling message, but like, again, like, I think that this movie is not really meant to, like, it skirts around that, but it's not meant to dig into it. Like, it wants to focus on these two people, but that results in kind of a weak situation when you've got all this world building going on at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, because he doesn't mention the gun at all in this interview, but he goes out of his way to be like, I'm curious to see how people react to his decision. And I'm like, well, why didn't you amp up this decision and actually make it the crux of the movie instead of giving us this weird side story about this gun, you know? Right. It's like, I mean, I guess you can make the argument that, like, if you want to go real deep in that the police represents the government trying to tell you that, like, we got to save the world and protect it. And that's what they protect the planet. And we have to apply these laws to restrict you. And then the gun represents freedom, which is such a weird thing to say from a non-American film. But I guess maybe that's what he was going for. Maybe it's all a metaphor. I don't know. But it's just, if that was what he wants people to react to, it's so strange that he put so many other things in to distract them from that decision.
Yeah, you guys are talking a lot about this, like, climactic choice that Hodoka makes, and I really just have no thoughts on it because there's nothing behind it in the movie. And yeah, I don't think there's meant to be much behind it.
There is something behind it. Love.
Yeah, love. Like, vague themes. Yeah, vague themes. No, it's like, this is like, they're doing the Life is Strange ending, and, except there's, I don't know. So it's like, I don't even know what to discuss. Like, I think you guys just covered it. There's potential things that might be behind it, but, it's hard to say this is like a weak point, because he didn't intend for this to be super thoughtful, like, behind, like, what's going on here, but I think, like, there should have been more anything behind the end of the movie. But I do think there's some interesting parts. We'll get it. Yeah, we'll take a deeper dive in the climate change thing. Beatrice, any other highlights or lowlights we hadn't mentioned?
I felt that I'm going to focus on, like, just visual decisions, because a lot of the stuff I want to talk about, that low things I want to talk about, are more like deeper dive. Did anyone think the air fish looked like sperm?
Oh, that was your take. Okay.
A little bit, and I'm like,
they were a bit like blobby, and it was like, are we supposed to think these are fish? But okay.
I don't know. I feel like they could have done more. Like, when it gets to, like, the air whale things, I'm like, okay, I see that as like a whale. I can see that. But the air fish, I was like, they look like sperm, and she's like being like surrounded by them, and I'm like, this is some sort of visual cue he's trying to really enforce on me, and I'm not appreciating it.
Oh.
I did not have the thought that they were like sperm, but it's not, the shape is not far off. I don't. I'm more just like, those fish never paid off into anything. That's my big thought on the fish. Is that was kind of nothing.
There's those things to tweet about, apparently.
Okay, yeah, there's nothing to do with the movie. I've heard a lot of directors talk about it. By the way, he's talking about, like, kids need to be more, like, decisive and stuff. Like, I've heard Miyazaki talk about this with regard to Whisper of the Heart, but that, like, actually applies to the ending of that movie. This I don't really see much happening here. Highlight, we talked about it briefly. Overall, I think the movie's biggest story or non-visual strength is its humor. I think the movie is pretty funny. It helps that we are in theaters full of people primed to laugh at this type of stuff. I think,
that's my reservation, right? Because, like, I agree that it went for a lot more jokes and it got a lot of laughs, but at the same time, I'm surrounded by people who I know are primed for this.
Yeah. Basically, we're saying, like, we were watching with weebs who liked the jokes that were happening.
Right. Yeah. And, like, I watched Your Name alone, and I did laugh a couple of times, but certainly not as much much as this movie was going for. So like, I'm not sure if it's actually that this movie is funnier or just that it's going for more obvious jokes, and your mileage may vary on if it's actually working or not. But like, it is definitely more humor focused. I'll say that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's both more of a comedy than Your Name, and it is funnier than Your Name. This is the literal one thing I think this movie does better than Your Name. I think I won't give it anything else, but I think it is much funnier than Your Name. But Your Name's not really trying to be that funny.
But but it's weird because it also swings the other way where I feel like it's more melodramatic than Your Name.
Yeah, like the gun stuff and all. Yeah, there's
right,
more
but
weird,
even just like the reunion between the two of them, like all these like moments where like he's crying and stuff. Where with Your Name, it felt earnest, it felt earned. Here, it just feels melodramatic. So it's really strange. It's like the pendulum just swings from like being funny to being melodramatic in like a snap. And I'm like, wait, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel right now. It didn't really land tonally, I feel, as well. But I will too. Well, if we're gonna keep with positives, I don't know if we're gonna focus on like characters, but positive. I really liked her younger brother Nagi, and I really liked Natsumi. I think that's her name, the niece of the guy. So I really like them too, and they were the more humorous characters, which makes sense why.
Because that's the movie's strength. Yeah, I think Hina, the younger brother, that's what I was gonna say. I think he's the highlight of the movie. Like, I think he's so funny. Yeah. He's also like that plot. Everything surrounding him is also like pretty sexist, but it's like, for some reason, it's much less offensive, I think, than anything else in the movie. Like, I feel, I don't know, not saying that's definitive, but for me, like, I wasn't really enraged by anything with him, and I just found it very funny.
I think it's because he's a kid. I think that's what it is. And you
my defense of Hodoka is also going to be he's a kid. So
he's 16, so it's like, okay, boy, like I don't calm down. Whereas this guy's like, what? He's 7, he's 8. So I'm like, oh, like this is funny. Hopefully you grow out of it eventually, and if you don't, I'm expecting you to get smacked one day by a girl, and you'll learn from that. Whereas with this other dude, I'm like, no, like, okay, and also I don't see this kid literally looking at a woman's boobs when she's sleeping.
Right,
so,
I don't think he was. Yeah,
I don't know.
He gets mad at one point at then, but like for the most part, he's presented as respectful, just popular among.
Yeah, and if anything, I think the only disrespect is when he's being really broy with Hodoka, when it's like, dude, you're talking about your sister. Like, what are you doing? That's really weird.
This character is hilarious. Like, this is one of the best gag characters, I think. I mean, there's no depth, right? But like, I think there's one of the best gag characters I've seen in a while in this type of movie. So I think that's a big strength too. And I don't know. I think like the big lowlights are going to be the deeper misogyny talk. But
well, before we like drift away too much from visuals, one small negative I will say. Was anyone bothered by all the hard cuts to black? Like I don't know. I
didn't notice that.
It like between scenes, like it would just cut to black for like 5 seconds and then come back to a totally different situation. That happened like 5 or 6 times in the movie. I'm like, come on, be a little bit more creative with your transitions. Like, you can't. It's not a TV show where you just like cut in the middle of acts. But like for a movie that's so visually stunning, like that was one thing that like stood out just because it felt very off. But yeah, just that one small complaint.
Okay, yeah, and then we can talk more about the visuals. I don't know. I kind of want to talk about climate change here. At the top, I feel like that's the most interesting non-super negative discussion to have. Like, what is this movie, if anything, trying to say about climate change? Also, like the use of like weather. It's like Weathering with You. It's the weather movie. It's a lot of rain, and then eventually there's some snow, I would say. And that's kind of the extent of the weather. There's a lot of
she can do some lightning sunshine. Bolts.
Oh, lightning bolts. Okay, stormy weather.
Yeah, she explodes that truck.
The sunshine, sunshine. She brings sunshine. There you go. Those are the types of weather. This movie, it's so interesting. I feel like because it's interesting in how it's not interesting. Like, clearly this movie has to be aware that people might be thinking about climate change because this movie ends with Tokyo underwater, and that is actually my biggest story highlight. I was like really unimpressed with the story until like the very end when we flash forward to Tokyo being completely underwater. We don't like do anything super interesting once we get there, but I was like, wow, I didn't expect to see this. This is kind of bold. The fact that we went to this point and are seeing the effects of this. But the problem is that in the movie, there's like a clear reason why this is happening in the movie's mythology, and it's not related to climate change. It's more just like a symbolic interpretation if you're going to interpret it. So it's like climate change is clearly there and presented, but it's also clearly not presented as the cause. I find this to be a weird dichotomy.
Also, I would say the weird part as well is that this whole movie portrays it as like part of a natural cycle. Like even after all Japan is underwater, like that old lady is like, well, that's how this was a long time ago, so it's fine. Like we don't really need to worry about it. It's not our problem. And that's just such a today, like such a weird attitude to have to be blasé about like, because again, like the problem is that in this movie, it's not necessarily man-made. It's more made by one single person who has this power, but everyone is just kind of accepting, like, okay, that's just how it is.
See, but I don't think it's made by one person. I didn't read it as her. It's more
Weather Girl, but
no, I don't think it's made by her. It's like the situation's happening and it needs a sacrifice. Like this is something cyclical that happened.
She didn't get sacrificed,
right? And that was like it keeps happening. Like it wasn't that it's because she's like taking advantage of it that it's happening. It's getting worse. If anything, it's just it's been looking for a sacrifice, and it's been raining, I think, for a while. At least that's what I read. I don't know if it's that it all started because she walked through that shrine gate.
I think that just, I mean, again, so all the mythology is like vague, so there's no right answers. I think that the shrine bestowed the maidenness upon her, but it would have had to have, someone had to have been the maiden. I think that was a bad thing. Like, you know, like that, maybe that enabled her to prevent the coming flood or something.
I mean, in terms of it being something that's been happening for like a long time, it's like something has time. First, I have a question, which is, are earthquakes or tsunamis, are they considered weather or no?
Not like in the movie or in real? No, not really.
In general, in real life.
They're natural phenomenon.
Because you know, just historically Japan's had like a bunch of like volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, typhoons. It's like in terms of like weather, it's always been a place that has a lot of turbulence when it comes to that. So in terms of like natural phenomenon, maybe not weather, but in terms of nature, like making itself like known and like demanding like respect, like that's one of the places where it's been very, just historically it's always been that way. So maybe that's from that perspective of like just the perspective of just like the people have constantly had to adapt to nature in a very dramatic way. In a very nature being easily overpowering humans and humans constantly having to adapt to it. I can understand that from that perspective, the kind of weird take of climate change. But I mean, if you're gonna like, he does say, and again in the interview, he does say that he was very much inspired by climate change and using weather violently versus using it as kind of this. But I've always sometimes seen in general, I don't know if he's personally used it violently, but I've seen sometimes it used violently, but I don't know. What I mean is it's just, I can understand it kind of not be like it being about climate change, but not being very overtly like climate change because just historically, but I can also be like, well, there's something odd here and it's weird that I don't know, they just kind of take this kind of fantastical twist on it without even mentioning the words climate change. And I'm just like, if you're going to make a movie about climate change, maybe you should say the words climate change in it. But that's, I don't know.
I think it's literally what you said. He's inspired by climate change. That doesn't mean he has really any message about it.
Right? Is that what he said in the interview, that he was inspired?
Yeah,
I was like really struck when you said like that's so weird to be inspired by climate change but not have that be like a theme or message. I've never seen that before.
And it's also like
here's an apocalyptic event happening around me. I'll put that in my movie, but it's not the same. Like,
but it's weird. He said he was inspired by it, and he, in the sense that he wanted to showcase weather being violent. But like, typhoons didn't start from violent climate change. They just got worse. So it's kind of like, but the weather has always been intrinsically violent. So I just don't understand the kind of like, oh, it's because of climate change that I want it to be violent. It's like, it's always been.
I guess
it's
it's
just
like
now,
the notion that Tokyo may be underwater in like that in 50 years, like inspires him to put Tokyo underwater in his movie.
maybe. And I agree that it was very bold. Like, I was happy to see that because a lot of times they'll just like, oh, we solved it, or oh no, like we don't. So and given the trajectory of how society is happening now, I feel like we are gonna choose the metaphorical Hina versus the clear skies.
I don't want Hina to be us ignoring climate change.
I'm just saying that's what she is. That's what she.
I don't like that.
That's the symbolically. That's what it means.
No,
we're going to choose ourselves instead of choosing the planet.
I don't think the movie's trying to say
Hina
represents us being selfish.
I don't know.
I think, but then it's like love is good, but if in that case love is bad because we shouldn't be choosing that. Like, that's why it's not saying anything, right? Like, it's not commenting on this.
Okay, but
don't sacrifice your love for an individual for love for the human race.
It's a very individualistic movie. It's like, okay, if I were to say this is the anti-Princess Mononoke, would you agree?
Well, I think Princess Mononoke got its message across a lot clearer. So
no, I'm just saying, like, it's not necessarily, it's superficial, not really engaging with environment, even though that's what it is about.
I guess I think the anti-Mononoke would have like an anti-environment take, like you should destroy the forest. I don't think this movie is being anti-environment.
But you can make the argument that because it's superficial and not taking things seriously when we should be taking things seriously, that is anti-climate.
I think that's fair. Yeah, it's just, it's hard to like, I guess you could say that, he made a selfish individual choice like the wealthy are making by not addressing climate change. But the problem is it's just portrayed so positively, and all his, like, Shinkai's like number one thing is romantic, melancholic reunion coming together. Like, that can't be bad in his movie. Like, it's a given that is good. So that he took an action to get to that point is a good thing. Like, I don't think he's trying to portray that as bad.
Well, I mean, you do see Holokai feeling guilty afterward. Like, you do see him apologize, even though people are like, well, it's not your fault. So like, you do feel sort of like
he puts a little bit there. Yeah, he does.
He does slightly, but it's like, it's so fast, and it's not during his, like, and it's interesting. I think it's because when he's making that choice, he doesn't think twice about it. And I think I think that's why there is a very lack of like negative light, because he doesn't really think about like, oh, this is what's going to happen. Oh, this might happen. If the water, I don't think they ever said, oh, if it keeps raining, Tokyo's going to be underwater. So it kind of gives it just gives this image, this idea that he acted out of love. But he didn't know what the outcome was going to be. He just thought the sky was always going to rain. He didn't think Tokyo was going to be underwater. Does that make sense? I don't know. I don't know what, like, I agree. It is, he doesn't really engage with it. I'm just trying to understand, maybe that's why, because he doesn't really, there isn't kind of any sort of, deliberation over the choice he makes, I guess.
Yeah. That's fair. He's not like saying like, I choose Tokyo to be flooded. It's just like, it'll keep raining. I do think there's some stuff in the last like 3 to 5 minutes. And that really is the best part of the movie for me, because you see that striking visual of, after seeing Tokyo so beautifully presented throughout the entire movie, right, seeing it so drastically changed is like hugely affecting. Like, yeah, I think this movie would be like maybe actively bad if it didn't have that ending, but like that ending really improves things for me. Right. And yeah, there is a little, like, yeah, there's some stuff at the end with what Hodoka talks about. Nothing to form a coherent view that the movie's taking or anything. They don't say it's about climate change. So there can't be a view it's taking about anything, because it's not really what it's about. But, at least there's like vague themes, and I do think they're intentional. Like, I definitely think he's trying to kind of comment on something around this, but he is not trying to comment anything specific.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of the thing, that the main part of this movie is the love story, and the weather is kind of treated like a backdrop or background. So like trying to mind.
It's called Weathering with You.
I mean,
with
sure.
Weathering with You, the love part with you.
Yeah, there have been many misleading titles in the history of film, Dylan. So
should we talk about the love story? Like, I didn't find that largely affecting.
And I think that's the problem, is that if you don't buy into the love story, then this movie isn't good, because I think that it hinges on that. I would say that while I was watching it, overall, like I sort of buy that like Hodaka and Hina fall in love. I'm more on Hodaka's side than Hina's side, but like eventually Hina comes around, because that's just how these rom-coms work. And so like, and they end up being kind of cute together and stuff. So I eventually got around to like buying into that. But at the same time, like, there are a lot of negatives to mine in terms of like Hodaka being kind of a jerk, Hina not demonstrating enough, like not being allowed to display enough personality to figure out like why Hodaka would be into her. So like, if you are on the negative side of this, then there's not enough in the rest of the movie in terms of like the weather lore or like the other characters. There's not enough there to enjoy it, because I think that they're hinging so much of it on the relationship between Hodaka and Hina.
Yeah, I mean, all of his movies are like that. They're all inherently, they're going to be about the couple to the...
Right, and like, I think Taki and Mitsuha were
amazing couple,
much more
wonderful.
Great couple, much more compelling characters. So like, that's a downgrade, and so that's a big part of this.
Yeah, that's my thing. Both of them they're just very generic, both of these characters, and nothing they do is particularly, like, I don't feel their bond to like, I do think they're cute, and the ending of the movie is cute, but it's like not because of them specifically. It's just like the movie's like telling a love story, and you have to buy into it a little bit, but I don't think the movie does anything particularly great with them. And you're right, I do think that's a big reason why it's not as effective as Your Name or other movies.
Yeah. And I think the one of the issues, and I think that's why, for instance, with Hodaka not being for me as compelling, and him failing to like get me to sympathize with him, makes it work that much, makes the failing of the movie that much more striking for me, because he does have agency in the movie somewhat. Like, he does make a big choice at the end. Like, it's his decisions, him deciding to run away, whatever. All these things, like, these are things that he decides to do. The only real decision that Hina decides is when she first walks through the shrine in the beginning of the movie, and instantly it's seen as a mistake. It's seen as now I'm going to be sacrificed for this.
I think Hina decides to sacrifice herself. I think that's.
We don't
see it from her perspective. We see it from his perspective. Like, and then her like choice is undone. Like, her agency is removed.
Does she sacrifice herself, or is it that the weather just takes her? Because there are a lot of instances where the weather literally just lifts her up.
My interpretation is she like left at night in order to be. She knew she'd be taken, so she went outside in order to like sacrifice herself by being taken or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's not clear.
So I mean, I feel like maybe that's it. It's like, okay, if you're only going to give one of them agency, make sure it's the one I'm going to care about, and that didn't happen. I think so. That's why even more so it didn't work in terms of just them. I'm like me not getting invested in the love story. It's like, okay, well, the one character that you really do need to connect with, it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hodaka is like a generic anime protagonist, but I mean, I don't think Hina's much better. I think she's very bland as well.
Oh, for sure. But I think her being bland is because she doesn't have any agency, and she's not really explored. Whereas with him, he's bland, and I'm like, okay, well, you chances. Do have agency, and I still find you bland. So I'm like, I'm a little bit more forgiving for not connecting with Hina as much.
And now I'll say that there's like small pieces that I latched onto with Hina, like her whole thing of being the older sister, having to take care alone of her brother, and like they have this little house together, and she's being like there was something there. So like I agree that overall she's bland, but like there are like bits and pieces you can latch onto. Like also Hodaka, like at the beginning of the movie, like he's running away from what we presume is some kind of unfortunate family situation and he's struggling to get by, and so he like stumbles into all this. There's something to root for there, depending on your point of view. So like there is stuff there, but I would agree with anybody who says that's not enough for them.
The main thing is they both are like have tragic pasts, and that's what they're like. He's running from a situation he didn't like. Hina's mom died. Yeah, but like, who cares? I don't know. It's like that's what I didn't latch on to that too much. Yeah, okay. We'll go more into we can go over everyone again in a little bit. Let's take the deeper dive into the sexism of the movie. I think we did a fair amount already. Beatrice, let me present to you my interpretation. Basically, I'm going to re-say what you were saying, and you tell me if you agree. Okay, like I think this is like a big male fantasy. This movie, like, and this is a lot of anime, but this is a very male perspectived male fantasy that we're living out through Hodaka running away to the city and finding this beautiful girl who. He's sad. The stupidest part of the movie, he's sad in a McDonald's all day, and so she comes out and brings him a Big Mac, and that's their meet cute. But it's like, this is like such, he's not doing anything to meet someone. He's just sitting there. Like, I don't know, like all of this, and it gets worse at the end, but, like, and it's like, oh, you're older than me. And like, to get into the ages thing, because I think Beatrice was talking about this, it's so creepy when it's like, oh, she wasn't 18, she was 15. And it's like the movie was trying to like present her as desirable and then like have you feel okay with it in the beginning, and then also like creepily prey on other impulses. Like I guess that's the best way I can say this. Like, I think that's like what's happening with this perspective. It comes across so creepy. Okay, other things. There's two main female characters. They're both presented sexually to begin with. There's Natsumi, who we meet by main character like staring at her boobs, and
she's asleep.
That's classic anime. I don't want to like the takeaway of that to be like, oh, Hodaka, you know, it's the writer's fault. Like, you know, like this is the perspective of the movie. But the Hina stuff, like, and then the next time we see Hina after the Big Mac incident is she's about to sell herself, like or at least work in a sketchy club. It's ambiguous, but that's gross, especially when later we learn how young she is. Regardless, like that's one of the main, and he's like rescuing her from
the damsel in distress.
This life of sex work. Like, oh my god, it's so terrible. How does he know not to avoid that? Like, that's the worst one for me. It's just this huge, and we never see her perspective. It's all his perspective on this, and it's a complicated thing with Hina is because she's just a figure of male fantasy, but she's like likable, and still, to the extent that the movie gives her any sort of like agency on her own, I think she's rootable. But it feels complicated to say you like this character because I do think she's just this product of the male gaze. A lot of this can be applied generically to anime. I will say that doesn't make it better, and I think it like explains maybe where the movie's coming from. To some people, all of this is kind of normal in a lot of animes. But a movie of this import following up on what's going to go down as one of the, you know, the best movies from Japan of this period, indulging these impulses, I think, is pretty unforgivable.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with everything you said. I'll just add that the fact that there's like a reveal at the end that she's 15, whereas like, okay, so now, for instance, like if a 18-year-old, like if an adult, an 18-year-old, I don't know what, I think the age of consent, I think over there is 21. I'm not 100% sure on this. Maybe 20, or maybe it's younger. I don't know. But like, I'm just going by like here it's 18. So it's like, all right, everyone in general, you're considered an adult at 18. So it's like, all right, well, she's making a choice to work at this place because of this, and suddenly he saves her despite her being like, no, this is what I plan to do. This is what I'm choosing to do. And then he's like, no, I'm going to save you and take you away from this dangerous situation. And it's like, okay, cool, dangerous situation, awesome. But now she's 15, so it's like, oh, he saved a young girl from this. He's now seen as a hero. Once again, her agency for the decision she makes is even more removed. And it's like, I think for me, it's like what really bothered me was the shot that was created by when she opens up her robe and she shows him.
Talk about that too, yeah.
Like, because it's not even like, okay, it's not even from the perspective. It's like, it's literally like first person perspective. You're seeing her open her robe to you. And that is one of the things that makes me think like, okay, Holoka is not a character. He's a self-insert. He's a self-insert for the male viewer, and he's seeing this girl who we later find out is a 15-year-old, like literally like disrobe herself in front of you. And it's like, and that scene for me, like that was, that already made me like a little bit nervous simply because of the way they constructed that shot. Because they could have just done it like from far away, giving clearly he's still in the frame and she's doing it for him and whatever. And it's clearly for Holoka and not for the viewer. And then maybe it would have been less creepy. But because it was a first person shot, that made it really, really creepy. And then the fact that she's 15 and you learn that later, that feels so gross. Yeah. And it's like, ugh. And not only that, but like throughout the entire movie, there have been drops of like, there's this one random guy that literally when the police stop him, he goes, I didn't know she was that young. And it's like, wait, what are you talking about? Already it's like making a joke out of men preying on young women and like or underage women rather. And that's gross. And it wasn't just like a throwaway line. This is like literally there's a entire plot point and reveal dedicated to, oh, she's actually younger than she said she was. And that's disgusting to me. Like that to me, I'm just like, ugh. And something that's like very anime is this, a woman wakes up to see this dude looking at her boobs and she just makes a joke out of it and is constantly, it becomes a point of humor where it's like, instead of her just being like, dude, creepy, like literally the one moment like that I love the most of the movie is when the Natsumi's uncle tells her that what Holoka thought she was. And then she goes like, dude, that's weird. That's creepy. Like, I'm not his mistress. And then he goes, oh, sorry, I didn't know you were related. And she's like, that's not the problem. The problem is that you thought I was a mistress, and that's not an okay thing to be. So it's like this, it was like a whole, oh yeah. Just, it's very icky, the movie in that sense. Like all, again, not an excuse, but like very much, like, I stopped watching anime for a reason a long time ago. And then having to watch this movie and just be like reminded of why, it's like, I didn't want to watch that. If I knew that going in, I wouldn't have watched the movie personally.
Yeah, you don't expect it after Your Name. That's
yeah.
If I can just interject quickly with the hotel room scene, the problem there, on top of everything that you said, Beatrice, is that there is a way to frame that as a serious moment, because like that's when she's like revealing that she's turning into like water, that she's disappearing, and like in the hands of someone else, I could totally accept that shot being like, okay, look, I'm showing you like this is what's happening to me. But because it gets turned into a sexual joke, it loses any sort of it loses gravitas that you could easily have at that moment. And that's why I kind of pushed back earlier on Dylan saying that this is a funnier movie, because I think like half of the jokes in this movie are of the sexual nature, and usually a lot cruder than you'd hope for this kind of a movie. So like those were especially the parts that fell flat for me, and the rest of the audience was giggling a lot. So yeah, so that's why like I'm not sure that this is a funnier movie, because like it inserts that kind of sexual stuff in places where it doesn't need it, and it could be a more thoughtful movie because there's so much potential there, and it just kind of uses it up in a lot of these interactions.
Fair, yeah. I wanted to, yeah, but I keep mentioning Your Name being better. I do think Your Name was also like a little bit sexist in parts, of course. So I don't want to like frame it as this pinnacle. Right. But it was nothing for me that like approached this. Yeah, the re-upping the hotel scene. Yeah, I think that's supposed to be a serious, and and it does come across that way, like a serious scene about like that. But the problem is it's also trying to like, there's this general gaze of Hina, of her being like this desirable person. And that is like the most like sexual thing that is happens with her. And, like on its own bad. And then also with the age reveal, much worse. And, it's just very it's presented artistically, but it also, because of the general perspective of the movie, comes across like still sexually and like badly, predatorily, etc. And yeah, the age thing, I genuinely think the point of revealing that, like, there could be like the movie could have gone differently, where it's like it's subversive at the end. It's like, oh, she was so young and all this, and then it changes Hodoka's perspective on everything, and he's taken down a peg, but none of that really happens.
Yeah, and again, like a part of this as well is that in the movie, it sort of deals with the fact that like she has to pretend to be older in order to get jobs, in order to support her brother, because that's the way that society works, and that would be fine. But because we sprinkle all the sexual stuff in here, it adds a very gross angle to it that I don't want to think about, when you could totally have a serious societal discussion about people who need to fake their way through things to get jobs in order to survive. Like, there is something there, but because of the other stuff that happens in this movie, you can't look at it just like that.
And I mean, sorry, but I mean, I do want to say, like, it's like a romance between a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old isn't a problem. The problem is the way it's framed in the story, where it's like, it's a first-person shot. Whenever you see like a male gazy shot of her, it's from a first-person perspective. It's no longer from Hodoka's perspective. It's from the audience's perspective. And that's what's creepy. Like, there are ways to frame a shot and suddenly it be all about Hodoka and Hina, connecting. But the movie multiple times does not do that. It goes out of its way to make it seem like it's you, the viewer, who are the camera, aka you, the male, looking and being the gaze of the camera. So that's the problem. That is inherently a problem. There are a lot of things that Hodoka does that are sexist and misogynistic, sure, but the way that she's portrayed has nothing to do with Hodoka and everything to do with the direction of the movie.
Yeah. Even with her 15, Hodoka Hina is we're not. Yeah, that's fine. But although, you can argue like these age differences are very big
right. You can make the argument. Yeah,
argument.
Totally.
But regardless, that's not necessarily the point. It's that these young people are being presented at any sort of sexual nature by adults making the movie. Like, it's about the perspective of the movie, as I think we've been saying a lot. I think Alex is right about the intent with the age reveal. Like, it's supposed to be like she's had to work so hard to get by, and like, yeah, I think that's probably the intent. But like, the main thought in terms of the sexism in the movie, I think, because of everything that precedes it, is it's like it's also indulging this young girl desirable thing that Japan has, right? Like I feel like it also is trying to indulge that. I mean, I don't know if I guess it's not intentional, but that's how it comes across, and I think that's a huge reason why it's just so gross, like, for me at least, when I was watching that.
I mean, sorry to interrupt you, but just one more thing. It's also like, of that reveal, it just, like, what is the purpose of the reveal? To make you think, oh, like, she's even more protectable. Poor child. Mm-hmm. She was, like, it really emphasizes, oh, this poor girl, this poor young girl, she's 15, so she's even more delicate and we must be protected. You know what I mean? Like, that was the point of the reveal. Like, he starts sobbing is because he's like, wow, she was even younger than she is. And that makes it all even more heartbreaking. And it's like, it's at that point where it's like, it really is emphasizing, like, oh, look at this, like, demure, poor young girl who needs like a strong man to protect her. And it's very gross.
Yeah, I agree. It's like taking away the adultness that was kind of presented as power in the beginning. And the further taking away of power / adultness is like clearly appealing to some people. And the movie plays into that, and bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good take on all of this in the movie. It's, for me, yeah, I felt like, a lot of this was in the beginning. I mean, the hotel thing was at the end and the reveal was at the end, but, the introductions to characters left me in like a bad place with the movie, and then it like slowly started to cloud of it. But, I don't know. It's the biggest negative for me, but
well, and to a lesser extent, but like a huge part of why the first half of that movie we I think we all agreed is kind of slower than the second half. A lot of that is just Hodaka like using Hina as like a business proposition. And like, I mean, sure, it tries to give across that this is a mutual thing, but it definitely at the same time like I got the feeling of we're kind of using her for business, this like special power, and like that drags on and it feels weird. So like that's just, I mean that we've already discussed the more serious issues, but yeah, like that also doesn't help.
Yeah, no, yeah, we don't get her perspective on it and see have her have agency. I will say, and this will hit on a few of the broader points to talk about soon, is one of my favorite parts of the movie is actually during the Sunshine Girl part. There's a montage of, probably set to the Radwimps music, of her just doing Sunshine Girl jobs across Tokyo, and I think this is like the movie at its best because not really stories or characters are important. It's like the visuals of Tokyo, the animation, the music on full display. She went to like a bunch of different parts of Tokyo, like I'd just been to, and that was like really amazing to see. And just seeing everything presented so gorgeously in the city. There's like tons of broad shots of Tokyo. You see a lot of the Tokyo Tower, you see a lot of the Tokyo Skytree, and felt like Miraculous Ladybug, seeing the Eiffel Tower looking thing all the time, right? It's like, I think there's parts of the movie that really play into that. That scene to me, that montage was like this movie's version of the montage early on in Your Name. I think seeing them body swapped, living their lives, I think is what it was. That was one of my favorite parts of that movie. I think it's like less successful, of course, but, there's appeals like that, I think, in this movie. There's like moments like that. Yeah, I don't have too many other comments on her as the Sunshine Girl. That's a big part of the movie, plot wise.
I guess while we're sort of on the topic of plot, like very early on, like we get that scene where they're interviewing the Mystic Lady, and the lady kind of just lays out the plot for you for the rest of the movie. It's like, hey, look, there's a weather girl, right? But if she does weather too much, she's gonna disappear. And so we're like stuck with that for like an hour until we get to the point where she's beginning to disappear. And it's like, okay, like I know the story is going here. Let's get there. So I'm just saying that they showed their hand a bit too early in that whole sequence.
I wasn't paying attention too much to what any of that. They had a montage of people talking mysticism and stuff, and I was a little tuned out. But it was the point is like, oh, all that was true. I guess, okay, sure. I guess what's the is the moral that palm reading and stuff and all this is true.
The moral is that in this universe you can control the weather.
Weather. That's the movie.
Did the music take you guys out in the movie at all?
Like the score or the songs?
No, the songs. I felt like they shouldn't have put songs in the movie. I think they should have just kept it scored.
I think that's one of the strong points of this movie, like especially at the end when they're falling through the sky together and there's that rock song playing. I love that combination going on. It felt very very climactic, even if the story itself does not get there, but the music helps a lot. And I think overall the music works, and this definitely works a lot better in Your Name, because Your Name has a similar style, like rock music during montages and stuff. But like here, at least to me, it was fine too.
It does feel less natural in this movie, like naturally integrated, I think, than in Your Name. And it's the same band, Radwimps, that does the music for both movies. And they have a few songs, I think, that I appreciated it because I was looking for like things to latch onto, and I think it did feel a little more jarring, I think.
Yeah. What about the cameos? Are we going to talk about them?
We can talk about the cameos now. So
can I say that I was very confused at why people were clapping at a random character?
Oh yeah. Were people? I guess people knew the cameos were there, but yeah, I don't think they were like super obvious that Taki and Mitsuha are in the movie. Mitsuha's
I think if you know
the jewelry lady, and Taki's like the son of one of the guys they visit, the old people they visit, or something. Yeah,
I think if you watched Your Name like right before the movie, then it is kind of especially Taki, because he's just like pans up and he's like the main thing in the shot, and they're like, yeah, it's like an obvious applause moment. But if I don't remember what he looked like, then there's a problem.
I mean, I will say maybe it's for me who hasn't seen Your Name in like a year and a half. I wouldn't if I didn't have an audience with me that was gasping when he came up and when she showed up, then I wouldn't have noticed. I wouldn't have cared. Honestly, it would have passed me by. But then because of the crowd reception of it, and then I was like, all right, so she's going to show up later probably. So then I was like, all right, where is it? And then they kind of do this weird sort of like, they're not going to show her face, but they're going to show her like ribbons in her hair. And I was just like, no, just show her. Like it took me out. I was like, I didn't need a cinematic universe of Your Name. And
But by the
Shinkai
way, so
they're all, it's happening.
This couple is also around when Tokyo drowns, right?
Right.
I think they're dead now.
Mitsuha has had her home destroyed twice.
Oh no! Yeah, that shouldn't be canonical in Your Name. I didn't rewatch Your Name before this, so I wouldn't have noticed unless because I heard the people cheering. I was like, oh, I guess that's what that is. Yeah, that had the same reaction. Yeah, it's unnecessary. Why are they here? There's no reason.
Yeah, and apparently, according to the interview. Yeah, and apparently, according to the interview, this happens before they meet up at the end of Your Name, before their reunion at the end of Your Name. Okay. That's when this story takes place. So everybody, when that next time you watch Your Name, know that by the time they meet up again, Tokyo is underwater.
Bad. I don't want that. Okay. Let them be happy in the non-global warming universe. Okay, like that. We can pretend.
Possible.
We don't need Your Name too. This is Your Name too. I do think it's similar. I do like it's different, but the problem is all his movies are have the ending. We can talk about the ending where they. Oh my God! One of them. There wasn't stairs. I think it was just a hill this time. It's like one of them's below and one of them's above.
Yeah.
And they look at each other. But one of the best parts about this movie is they don't just look at each other and it ends. They actually like embrace, right? Like they have a moment.
Yeah. They do.
That's he restrained himself a little bit. Like it doesn't end on them glancing at each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice.
I think that's that. Do they kiss? I don't remember. What did they do?
I don't think they kiss. I think they just hug. And you know how like when she first met him, she like touched his like face a little bit. Well, in this one, she touches his face again. So it's like it's a lot more intimate than the glance. I don't know. I still think the glance from Your Name is much better done. But again, it adds to the self-indulgence of the movie. It's just
the glance is 5 centimeters per second. Of course, ends the same. Like this is like the tropey. It's like already an anime thing. Is the movie ends with the couple glancing at each other from a distance, but like Shinkai has like co-opted it. I feel like it's like his thing. Like so, like the Your Name. I don't. I need to rewatch it, but it's like it's typical. It's the downside, and this, but at least he's doing something slightly different here. Go past it.
I think a key ingredient here is that Your Name has the all-important thing of, will we ever be able to be together? Whereas here, like, they know each other from the very beginning of the movie. You know, it's a boy, it's a girl, they're gonna be together. So that kind of, it's missing an ingredient in the soup. Your Name had a better soup.
Yeah, Your Name, they're like torn apart by actual stuff. Like this movie, like I didn't understand why he didn't find her earlier. He's just embarrassed. I don't like. It was just social like reasons why they weren't together in the 3 years. Like he could have just gone. I guess he was limited to the island. He was in legal trouble. That was the reason. But I was like, okay, this is weird that they haven't seen each other in this long. That's how I felt. But anyway, yeah, I appreciated that he did something different then. Other scenes, I think probably the we haven't mentioned, I think Alex mentioned, but I think the big highlight tentpole scene, at least intended to be the tentpole scene, is when Hodaka goes to get her back after she sacrificed herself, and he like goes to the top of the sky and he finds her and they fall through the sky together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the I think probably it's the highlight for me. I mean, I wasn't as into it as similar, like hugely climactic emotion, but I do think it was really well done.
Yeah, again, like I think this depends a lot on your connection because it's like Horuka is finally gets to see Hina again, and they're like holding hands as they're falling through the sky. It's like it would in a vacuum, it's romantic, but at the same time, if you don't care about these people, then it's like okay, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't care, but I still like it was gorgeous and emotional. I think regardless for me.
Yeah, and I think the music helps a lot in that scene as well. So, like, that's another piece of it.
For me, it's very reminiscent of Spirited Away, with them in the air with the dragon stuff. I feel like it was building off of.
Dare you
to...
compare this to the beautiful Spirited Away? Like, do not insult Spirited Away with this.
I'm saying I think he's trying to do that scene. Like, I don't know if that's successful or not, but.
I don't know who was talking, but in the subtitles, there was somebody who said the phrase "spirited away," and I was just like, "Hee hee."
Oh, someone said "spirited away." Yeah. Oh yeah, we all watched it subbed, right? We should have said that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone said Spirited Away. No, yeah, I think this is like the Spirited Away influence, but no, it's a worse scene, and obviously this movie is like so much worse. But I think that's probably still a highlight. But I also felt, the thing is, I also felt like this was supposed to be like the big moment, and I was I was like trying to embrace it as it was. First, I felt like, okay, it's a big moment, I'm supposed to be into this, and then I like started to catch up to it. That was my experience watching that. I don't know. That's part of like the tropiness of the love story and how it's all kind of similarly. I guess that's the Kotawara Doki scene of this movie from Your Name when they're like, the Twilight scene in Your Name when they're, on opposite planes or something and finding each other. Which is like one of my favorite scenes ever. And this scene is like, not that, but it's still good. I'll say that. Okay, so can someone explain the opening scene in the movie to me? They're not supposed to understand it at the time, but looking back, what happened in the beginning? What's the first thing that happens?
She walks through the shrine. No, it's like with her mom.
He was wasn't he in the hospital? And he was like we only we knew about this, and was it right? And I don't know. And there's cool visuals happening.
I didn't think he was in the hospital because he was on a boat. Was
he on the boat? Okay, he was just on the boat.
Yeah, he wasn't there with that scene, which in hindsight kind of goes like, okay, well, guess she told like. I don't. That's
that was just her becoming.
Why it started with her versus him when he's the protagonist and he wasn't there to see that happen. But I guess I don't know.
I felt like he had narration. I guess he was talking about something else, or he was talking.
I guess he was talking about the story.
Or he was talking from the future. Yeah, he was. Yeah. Okay. I was confused.
Yeah.
I think the moral of this is that why is Horuka the narrator of this movie? Like, I don't need a narrator. Or let Hina explain her side of the story, please.
Or just, include her in the narration. Have them both be narrators.
Yeah.
Let's close quickly running through the characters on this. Okay, here's the defense of Horuka is that he's a kid and he doesn't do anything super offensive, I think. He's like I'm not mad at him when I'm mad at like the movie watching it, you know. I feel like his biggest offense for me is he is uninteresting. But I don't know if he does. Nothing he does was the worst thing he said. He said one thing to her. She's like, do you want the rain to stop? And it's like, oh, you're an idiot. Just answer no to this question. But other than that, I was like, okay, stop being a perv. But I don't know. It's an anime kid. Maybe that shouldn't be an excuse. But I didn't, find him super interesting. So maybe it's not that big of a defense of okay. Yeah. I think we've talked about the downsides. Okay. Hina, we've talked about her. I think like her and her brother, how about that? Their dynamic. I think that's good. I think her taking care of the brother like helping her with the business, it being in the costume. I think that's really nice, cute and funny. I think, they have some moments that's good. So there's some depth to her character. I think it's just like my main reaction was we're sorely lacking her perspective on anything.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't like when movies give us like a titular character, because the movie is called like the weather in Japanese. It's the Weather Child, like Tenkinoko, or like weather. I don't know if it's Weather Girl or Child. So Weather Child of the Weather. So it's like, okay, so it's her. She is the child of the weather. Why isn't she the focus of the movie? You know?
Yeah, I guess the English title fixes that. It kind of puts.
Yeah, it kind of makes it. It kind of fixes it. But as someone who can read it, I'm like, okay, that wasn't all right. So there's that. But I guess I don't know. I'm trying not to get too mad at it, but there it is. That movie.
Going in with that title, the Japanese dub, you might expect it to be more about her, and it was not. Yeah. Suga is the uncle. His business. He saves Horuka's life in the beginning. I think he is a subplot with his daughter and trying to like become a better person to see his daughter again. There's not a lot there, but I think this was one of the more emotionally effective parts.
Yeah, I loved him. He was great. I was like, I care more about you than Hodoka. I care more about you and your family than Hodoka and Hina. If it weren't for Hina's brother, I wouldn't really care as much about her either. So, like,
I kind of care more about him and his daughter than about the main couple.
Yeah.
I do want to ask though. It's a weird thing where he can't see his daughter because it's raining. He's only allowed to see her when it's sunny because then they can be outside. So, like, at the end, I think that they were trying to go for some kind of conflict where he doesn't want to let Hodaka go because he knows he's not going to see his daughter again. But, like, it doesn't do enough to display that. But, like, I got the sense that they're trying to, like, insert some conflict and it doesn't really work. But anyway, I'm just saying, it's a strange dynamic he's got going on where, like, he's dependent on the rain not happening in order to see his daughter. It's tragic in a way.
I think it did work. I think him saying to the whole guy, like, you need to go. I need to focus on getting my daughter back, and I can't have the police, like, asking me questions about a kidnapping when I'm trying to win a custody battle. So I was I was, like, all for it.
I meant
at the very, very end, like when we're having all the gun battle and stuff, and like he's initially trying to stop him from going up there, and then like he eventually like lets go of it. But like I guess with all the guns.
When did you get he can't see the daughter because of the weather?
Because of the asthma.
He says it. He says, "Oh, I can't see her when it rains."
Can't go outside.
Right, and that's how he finds out about Hodoka's second job. I think it's because he asked the sunshine girl to come.
Yeah, I thought he just wanted a nicer day to improve the day with the daughter.
No, it was so he could see her. Like he says,
well, I feel like there's like the main thing I got was that he was like a degenerate, and that's why he didn't have custody. You know, like I think he's trying to improve his behavior.
I thought it was just like, I don't know, he was very depressed after his wife died, and now the
and he's depressed and smoking and drinking, and the mom of the wife had custody, I guess.
Right, and then he's trying to get
it back. Yeah, I guess there's a weather component too. Okay, all of it. It's probably confusing because it's not focused on. Maybe that should have been the plot of the movie. I don't know.
Maybe I feel like that would have been better.
There's Natsumi, who we've talked about, and the reveal is that she's the niece of Suga. I think she's a fun character, but also for me has this thing where it's like she's a product of the male gaze of the movie and is not given any depth, so it's weird.
It is weird. I still want to marry her, but it is weird.
that scene where she's helping Hodaka escape on the moped is kind of cool.
No,
yeah, that's probably her best stuff. Yeah,
I'm glad that because I was worried when that was going to happen that they were going to do that thing where it's like, oh, I'm going to put my arms around you and blush, and I was worried that was going to happen, and I'm so glad that didn't happen. I was like, that's wow, good. I was expecting so little of you. That's how little I expected of this movie. That was already fearing the worst.
I don't think. Yeah, she has humor subplot of her trying to find a job.
Right. Which I connected with a lot. So again, I was like, I let's get married.
I think that those parts were very funny. It's also just like depressing. I feel like that there's like a depressing component to not being able to find employment that the movie did not focus upon. But the movie plays most things, I think, for humor's sake. We talked, including Nagi, the younger brother. We talked about, I think, basically everything he does is intended to be comedic. Maybe there's like a few bonding moments with Hodoka that are supposed to be genuine, and maybe with his sister. But he's put in the costume, and then there's the whole, like, he's like first Hodoka sees him on the bus, and it's like, how's he so popular with the girls? And it's like, oh, that's you, the brother. I thought that was pretty funny. And then like at the end, he's like in custody, and it's like, oh, it's the 15th visitor. And then I feel like it got complicated by, it's like, oh, I'm your ex, and I was dressing up in order to, like, I was like mad at you. I didn't follow, but it was the general thing. I think
there's a whole prison movie you could make out of someone breaking up custody with your young ex-girlfriends.
I think Nagi might be what I remember most about this movie, honestly. Like,
there was that scene where they're like, he's playing soccer, and then he's like, oh, you have my permission to ask out my sister.
Which is weird. That's so weird. That's so weird. It's not even like, he doesn't even say like, oh, you have my permission. He's like, hey, let me give you some tips on how to romance my sister.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's this weird thing where he goes like, when Hodoka goes like, why are you helping me? And he goes, oh, I want her to experience adolescence too. But still, it's so weird. It's your sister. Why are you being his wingman? You should be her wingman. Like, it's so strange.
Yeah, he should be her wingman. Yeah, I thought the perspective they were trying to get him, I think it was sweet. And he's like presented as more mature, so it's like, and it played into the main joke with him that he knows more about this and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Like, he should have been talking to her, and it's like the movie never gives those types of moments.
I don't know. There was just also that one line where it was like, oh, like, show interest now, but then be vague later, which is like that's like I'm the playboy advice, but it's like, you want him to date your sister. You're not supposed to give him the playboy advice. You're supposed to give him the advice. Like, it was very like bro-y, and it was not cute.
I think they do a fist bump at the end there.
I know. It's not cool. I was like, dude, it's your sister. Why are you teaching this guy to like, oh, no.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that line. That line was also an like, I've seen people upset about that line, and like, I'm not like, I wasn't like outraged in terms of the misogynist perspective of the movie. It's like, okay, this kid has the wrong impression of, and he's, but yeah, in the context of that conversation, that's very stupid for him to say that. Okay, yeah, that's okay. Last thing, police officers. There's a lot of them, including this one guy with really cool hair.
It's like JoJo hair, right?
Yeah,
the pompadour.
There's like in Phoenix Wright games, the first prosecutor you always face reminded me of that guy. Yeah, I don't know. We spent a lot of time with the cops that didn't really matter, but they had kind of cool designs / slight personalities. It wasn't like terrible or anything. I don't know. It was just like.
I mean, they were just trying to do their jobs. They're like, look, how did you get this gun? Like, where? Like, who are you?
They made like a throwaway reference to the gun being like from like a former criminal that left it around or something,
so right? It's like, they're just like, okay, like, what's going on? Like, we just want you to answer these questions. Like, why did you like run away? Like, you need to go back home. Your parents are worried. Like, maybe if they had actually told us exactly how, like, because at this point he might be like from a home, like, we don't know his home situation. So maybe if we had actually known it, instead of just this like vague kind of like, oh, we're gonna give you a hint, but it might not even be true. He might just be a teenager who wants to go to Tokyo and run away. Like, you know, like, we didn't really get that much. So I'm just kind of like these police officers are just doing their best, and this kid is like giving them a hard time. Like, and I like how he was just like, oh, we're going to have to give him like a psych evaluation, aren't we? Like, eventually, I don't know. He didn't say that exactly, but they're like, should we call like the medical staff? Once like he's like crying, like, no, like the girl, she's gone, the weather. So I feel bad for them. And
I felt like they didn't lose perspective of him being a kid, but also they were going to shoot him at the end. I don't know, like
because he had a gun. And why is there a gun?
I would have been like, why is there a gun? I would have been like, dude, he's a danger to society. Like, okay,
no, like not a stun gun or something. I don't know. Get some other.
Like you said, like focusing on the missing persons angle and having police chase them around, fine. But then you throw in the armed situation. It's like it's a whole different dynamic.
Yeah. It was like you're kind of like sympathizing with the cops throughout, and then it's like, oh, you're rooting against them. At then it's weird a little bit. But yeah, it's probably the gun's fault.
It's always the gun's fault.
That's what the true moral of the
always
story.
the best fault, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it is his fault that Tokyo's underwater. You can blame him. It's fine. I think it's true. Alex, any other things in the movie or final thoughts on Weathering with You?
I ate Burger King right before this movie, and then they like bombarded me with McDonald's imagery. So like I didn't appreciate that because the Whopper is way better than the Big Mac.
Oh, shots fired!
But at the same time, this is the most lovingly animated hamburger I've ever seen. So
right?
You haven't seen the animated like McDonald's commercial from Japan? It's so good. You should watch that.
This was not like Wookdonald's in this anime. It was actual McDonald's.
Yeah, actual McDonald's.
That was surprising. Did they sponsor it?
Who knows? But also, like, no way would like a person working there give a homeless person like. There's no empathy in the world. Like they would kick them out into the rain. Like that's how McDonald's treats hobos.
I feel like it makes slightly more sense in Japan, but I don't know. That's my impression.
So yeah, product placement is high in this movie.
Was it product placement?
Yahoo! I saw Yahoo so many times.
The Yahoo stuff got a lot of laughs.
Apparently, like 5 scenes per second was released on like Yahoo, like 10 years ago, whatever platform they had. So I don't know if that was him giving tribute or it was like sponsored or something. But
yeah. So in summary, Weathering with You is a pretty movie. It's got bits and pieces that you can latch onto. I would not, after discussing it through, I would not recommend it as thoroughly as I probably did at the beginning of this podcast. But like, I think that compared to the vast stream of bad anime that I'm sure is out there in the world, like this still ends up close to the positive side of the spectrum. So like I think that there's stuff here to enjoy, but you do have to be aware that it has a lot of flaws, some of them bigger than others. So Weathering with You, it's wet. Get wet.
Get wet. Okay. Sure. Yeah, well, we've beaten you down, Alex, on the movie. That's good. Oh yeah, you're right. The Yahoo answers
watching it in 40x. Like you just have like the spraying water at you through the whole movie.
Oh man, this movie's meant for multiple dimension viewing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like in the lightning, like you'd have like the blinking lights in front of the seats. Like this is if any movie was made for 40x, this would be it. Never pay for 40x, guys. But if you were to pay for it, it would be for this.
Okay, well, I don't think that's an option, but maybe. Who knows? We don't keep track of that. The Yahoo Answers gag he posted on there, I think that was pretty funny too throughout the movie. He like asked on there, and they're always like, "You're an idiot," and it's true. He was an idiot, so that's fun. Beatriz, final thoughts.
I watched this movie. I watched it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched.
You proved that. You did prove that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I deserve a medal.
You should be applauded for it.
And Natsumi, like your hand in marriage, I'm still asking for it. if you so please accept it. Yeah, this movie happened.
Okay. There you go.
The scene of him running on the train tracks I enjoyed. I thought that was pretty good visually, and like also like people the detail of like people being like, oh, hey, look, a weird person running on the train tracks. I would react the same way if I saw someone just running on the train tracks.
Honestly, I love the whole like some people just like want to do these things are so they're inconveniencing everyone else, which again thematically it fits thematically with his final decision to Tokyo Underwater.
This is a very just Japanese opinion of what that, but yeah, I was just horrified by all the train tracks all like broken during that. Like, oh no, how is the metro running?
That's
like,
the true tragedy.
Such a complicated metro, like it's crazy.
And also, it's kind of like a fantasy of mine to like find train tracks and just walk on them without any fear of like an actual train coming. I don't know any train tracks that are nearby that are abandoned, so like that'd be cool. It's
a very movie trope. Yeah, you want to fulfill that experience of walking on train tracks. Okay.
Yeah.
I really did like once when they show Tokyo Underwater, they have like instead of like they use the subway cars, but now as like ships.
Yeah.
I thought that was really
Oh,
neat.
I missed that.
They did, yeah. They were like boat. Yeah, they made the subways into boats. I was like,
Yeah.
how'd you do that in 3 years? But actually, I buy it. Like, I think they would do that. Yeah, my main takeaway is I want to rewatch the very end of the movie. But other than that, I'm good. And it was. I don't regret seeing it in a theater because it was so beautiful. But I think we covered the complicatedness of this film, and I hope that for his next movie, he is the Shinkai-ness of his impulses is kept more in check, like it was in Your Name. I guess I would say, and I think I don't know. I guess the success of this, I'm not optimistic, but clearly there's a different movie that is capable of being made, I think, than this type of movie. So I think there's hope probably for the next one. We'll see if we see it and if it's as big and talked about. I don't even know what his next movie is. I don't think it's been announced. But there you go on Weathering with You. Let us know your thoughts. I'm sure some people try to tell us why we were too negative about it. If you do it respectfully, that's fine. In the comment section at overlyanimated.com, on our YouTube at youtube.com/overlyanimated, or come to our Discord to talk about it at overlyanimated.com/Discord for our movies or anime channel. And you want to email us or anything, let us know your thoughts on everything. You can always do that. All those contact links at overlyanimated.com. Check out other podcasts, mostly TV stuff right now. We'll see next any sort of upcoming film discussions. I think this was the big release around now. And find all that overlyanimated.com. I don't even know if there's any other anime stuff we're getting into.
We're not doing an Oscars pod, right?
I don't assume not, unless people have seen all of them.
Yeah. Notable that Weathering with You got snubbed in both animated feature and international feature.
The one thing the Oscars did right.
The thing is, I don't think Your Name got nominated, so like come on, this is not what we should be.
Well, but like Your Name, I think was during the year where like Moonlight got nominated and all that stuff. So I was like, all right, it was a good Oscar year.
It was at least a good year.
Yeah, at least. So
this is the one thing you're taking solace in this year.
It's like the one good thing about the Oscars this year. This movie didn't get recognition.
I'm sure it's better than at least one of the 5 that got. I've not seen.
I mean, if Frozen 2 didn't get nominated, like this, okay.
Yeah, I will say Frozen 2 Frozen 2 is a much better movie than this movie.
It's not the pod for that, but yeah.
Okay.
Water in Frozen 2 is better. The water in Frozen 2 is better than the water in this movie. All right.
Ooh. I do remember
that's a big
shot.
component of this movie, so that's a big take, I think. There.
Water in #Moana Impact. The water in Frozen 2.
I don't know what that means, but that's good. That's a good hashtag.
Water like brought a new level to animated water for Disney. It is absolutely stunning. And then they were able to work on top of that to create the water in Frozen 2. Come on, Moana Impact.
Beatriz, save this gold. We're going to add this to our podcast idea.
Those first
Beatriz talks about water and animated.
Those first 2 minutes of Toy Story 4 has really good rain animation. Like when Woody is running through the rain and you see like little puddles freaking out.
You guys are honestly justifying this podcast, so just go do it. Okay?
For me, for Toy Story 4's beauty was in its lighting. Like the lighting, the reflection
all
of the lighting, the porcelain, and then in the plastic. Like that's what Toy Story 4 was all about.
Yeah, so
you gotta bring in Avatar and Korra to the water animation discussion.
For movie, are we gonna bring in TV when it's like a movie?
Yeah, sure. Bring in anything to this.
All
okay,
right.
we'll start planning this podcast. Bring in Finding Nemo.
Pants. Okay.
SpongeBob's water animation. Okay, we're gonna ruminate on this, and we'll get back to you guys. Thanks for. Do we do Patreon? Patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Rachel, aka Rachel Rose, and thanks as always to our patron executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Beatrice, Michael, Needle. Will we went over stuff. So that's it, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.